cruising used to remove the stress from a vacation. Now, it can create an entirely new kind of stress. You're supposed to be switching off, yet somehow you're watching the clock, checking your phone, and planning ahead just to avoid missing out on things aboard a ship you already paid to enjoy. And that is only the beginning. Because behind all these small changes is a much bigger shift that passengers are finding harder to ignore. Today, we're going through 11 reasons cruising doesn't feel like a vacation anymore. And wait until number 11, because it reveals the point where long-time cruisers stop adapting and start wondering whether they should cruise at all. Number 1. The vacation that lost its spontaneity. Cruising used to be simple. You woke up, looked at the daily schedule, and decided what sounded good. Maybe you went to a show. Maybe you changed your dinner plans. Maybe you did absolutely nothing until something interesting caught your attention. That freedom was part of the vacation. Now, on some ships, passengers feel like they need to organize their fun before they have even boarded. Restaurants can fill up. Popular shows may need reservations. Activities can reach capacity, and the time you actually want may disappear while you're still deciding. So instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing tonight?" you're asking, "What did I manage to book?" Picture your first sea day. You're finally relaxed, sitting by the window with a coffee, when you remember the activity you reserved weeks ago starts in 20 minutes. You do not really feel like going anymore. But if you skip it, you may not get another chance. Then dinner arrives. You're not hungry at 6, but 6 was the only reasonable time left. The later slots were either gone or so late that dessert would qualify as tomorrow's breakfast. Some passengers love planning everything in advance. They enjoy knowing their meals, shows, and activities are secured before the cruise begins. For them, reservations remove stress. But other cruisers feel the exact opposite. They did not book a vacation to follow another schedule. They wanted to wake up and choose. And when every popular experience needs to be claimed early, the cruise stops feeling spontaneous and starts feeling like a series of appointments floating through the ocean. Nothing has necessarily been taken away. The shows are still there. The restaurants are still open. The activities are still happening. But the freedom to decide at the last minute is disappearing. And that may be one of the biggest reasons cruising no longer feels as relaxing as people remember. Because when you need a reservation to be spontaneous, you are not really being spontaneous at all. Number 2. The phone you were supposed to be escaping. One of the strangest changes in modern cruising is that the phone you packed to escape from has become almost impossible to avoid. You wake up at sea, open the curtains, and see nothing but ocean. This should be the moment you forget what day it is. Instead, you are searching for your phone. Where is today's schedule? Check the app. What time are we arriving in port? Check the app. How much have we spent on board? Check the app. Has the cruise line changed something important? Better check the app again. What began as a useful extra has slowly become the control panel for the entire vacation. And when it works, it can be brilliant. You can see the schedule, message the people you are traveling with, check your account, find a restaurant, and see what is happening around the ship. Some passengers love that convenience, but the problem begins when the app stops feeling optional. Not every cruiser wants to spend a vacation staring at the same screen they were hoping to escape at home, and not every passenger finds the technology easy. You may see one person confidently tapping through the app while their partner hands over the phone and says, "Can you find it for me?" For some older cruisers, that can mean depending on somebody else just to understand what is happening on board. Then the app freezes, the page refuses to load, the connection drops. The password suddenly stops working. Or the battery is sitting at 8% while the information you need is trapped behind a spinning circle. That is when convenience becomes another job. You are not enjoying the ship, you are troubleshooting it. Depending on the cruise line and ship, paper schedules may still be available, but passengers can find themselves hunting one down or asking guest services for something that once appeared automatically in the cabin. So even choosing the old-fashioned option can require extra effort. A cruise used to make it easier to put the phone away. Now, leaving it in the cabin can make you feel as though you have lost access to half the ship. And when a vacation cannot function properly without a charged screen in your hand, switching off becomes one more thing you have to work at. Number 3. The sales pitch that follows you around the ship. There was a time when stepping onto a cruise ship felt like the spending decisions were mostly over. You had booked the cabin, you had paid for the vacation. Now you could finally enjoy it. But on some modern cruises, boarding the ship can feel like walking into a floating sales floor. Often, a photographer is waiting before you have barely crossed the gangway. The spa is promoting a consultation. The shops are announcing a one-day sale. And somewhere nearby, someone is explaining why this is the perfect moment to upgrade something you did not know needed upgrading. None of these extras is automatically bad. Some passengers want the photographs. Some love spa treatments. Some are happy to pay for a special dinner or a bottle of wine. The problem is not that the extras exist. It is that passengers can feel as though they are being sold to from the moment they arrive until the moment they leave. Picture someone finally lying down for a massage. The lights are low. The music is soft. For 50 minutes, they almost forget the outside world exists. Then, before they have even fully sat up, the relaxing treatment turns into a conversation about creams, oils, supplements, brushes, or another appointment. The massage may have ended. The sales pitch has not. The same pressure can appear elsewhere. You only wanted to look at one formal night photograph, but suddenly you are being shown the package, the digital bundle, and the reason buying one picture apparently makes less sense than buying 27. At dinner, you may be offered wine, shots, upgraded menu items, or another restaurant while you are already sitting in a dining room included in your fare. Most crew members remain polite and affirm, "No thank you," may end the conversation immediately. But when a different offer appears around every corner, the atmosphere starts to change. You stop wondering what the ship has to offer and start wondering what the next person wants to sell you. That is the part long-time cruisers notice. The vacation once felt like hospitality. Now, parts of it can feel like a sales target with an ocean view. Cruise lines are businesses, and of course, they want passengers to spend on board. But there is a difference between making extras available and making people defend their wallets while they are trying to relax. Because after paying thousands of dollars for a vacation, passengers should not feel as though every friendly conversation might end with someone asking for their cruise card. Coming up, we're getting into the changes long-time cruisers notice the moment they step outside their cabin, and one of them can turn a relaxing sea day into a search operation before breakfast is even over. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Number 4. The ship got bigger, but relaxing got harder. Modern cruise ships are astonishing. Some carry restaurants, theaters, water parks, racetracks, shopping areas, climbing walls, and enough entertainment to fill an entire week without visiting a port. For many passengers, that is exactly the attraction. They love the endless choices. They love the energy. They love stepping onto a ship that feels like a floating city. But cities come with crowds. And on the biggest ships, when 5,000 or 6,000 passengers wake up on the same sunny sea day, many of them want exactly the same things at exactly the same time. Breakfast, an elevator, a pool lounger, a table near the window, a place in the shade. You reach the pool deck carrying a book and the innocent belief that 2 empty loungers might still exist. Instead, every prime chair appears occupied. Some have people sitting in them. Others are being guarded by towels, flip-flops, and one lonely paperback whose owner has apparently left it in charge of waterfront property. So you begin walking, one lap of the deck, then another. By the third, you are no longer relaxing. You are conducting a search operation. The same pressure appears inside. An elevator arrives and is already full. The next one stops on every floor. When the doors finally open, people start pushing in before the passengers inside have managed to get out. At lunchtime, you find food easily, but spend the next 15 minutes carrying it around while searching for somewhere to sit. Nothing has gone terribly wrong, but the day is being chipped away in small pieces. Wait for the elevator. Search for a chair. Circle the buffet. Stand in another line. Try again later. Cruise lines have built larger ships because passengers want more attractions, more dining, and more entertainment. But adding more things does not always create more space around them. Some experienced cruisers are moving back towards smaller ships because they would rather have fewer attractions and fewer people competing to use them. Others would never give up the excitement of a megaship. Both sides have a point, but this is why bigger does not automatically mean more relaxing. A ship can offer more things than ever before and still leave passengers spending more of their vacation waiting to reach them. And when finding somewhere to sit starts feeling like an achievement, the floating city may be impressive, but it no longer feels much like an escape. Number 5. The included food that now feels like the budget option. Cruise food used to be one of the main reasons people booked a cruise. The main dining room felt special. The menus had variety. There were impressive buffets, late-night food, and meals passengers talked about long after they returned home. Now, longtime cruisers are noticing something uncomfortable. The cruise fare keeps rising, but the food included in that fare does not always feel as though it is improving with it. The dining room may still look polished. The waiter still places the menu in front of you, but the choices can feel smaller. The portions can feel lighter. A favorite dish has disappeared. An additional entree may now cost extra. And the steak passengers once talked about can arrive looking as though it has been through a difficult week. Then the specialty dining sales begin. The steakhouse promises better cuts. The seafood restaurant advertises more exciting choices. The Italian venue has the menu passengers wish they were reading in the main dining room. And suddenly, the food creating the most excitement is sitting behind another charge. That is what frustrates longtime cruisers. Specialty dining used to feel like an optional treat. Now, on some ships, it can feel like the place passengers pay to receive the quality and variety they once expected from the included restaurants. Some cruisers completely disagree. They still enjoy the main dining room. They find plenty they like at the buffet. They enjoy trying different included venues and see no reason to spend another $1 on food. For them, cruise dining remains one of the best parts of the vacation. And that is fair. Not every ship, sailing, kitchen, or meal is the same. But other passengers feel the included food has become less consistent, while the restaurants charging extra receive the thicker steaks, more interesting menus, and better presentation. Whether that was deliberately planned or not, the result can feel the same. You already paid to eat. Now you are being encouraged to pay again to enjoy it more. Some passengers are happy to do that. They may book one specialty restaurant for an anniversary, choose a steakhouse because they genuinely love it, or buy a dining package because food is an important part of their vacation. That can be money well spent. But when passengers begin booking specialty dining because they no longer trust the included food, something has changed. The paid restaurant is no longer just an upgrade, it has become an escape route. Cruising can still offer more food than anyone could possibly finish in a week. But quantity is not the same as quality. And when the included dining starts feeling like the option you settle for, rather than one of the reasons you booked the cruise, it is easy to understand why cruising no longer feels the same. Number 6. The port day that ends before it really begins. You wake up, pull back the curtains, and finally see the place you traveled thousands of miles to visit. The port is right outside. You have spent months looking at photographs, deciding what to see, and imagining an entire day there. Then you check the schedule. The ship leaves in the afternoon. Not evening. Afternoon. By the time passengers are cleared to go ashore, make it through the terminal, find transportation, and reach the place they actually came to see, a large part of the stop has already disappeared. Now the clock is running. You are not exploring the destination. You're calculating it. 20 minutes for photographs, 40 minutes for lunch. Do we have time to visit the market? How bad could the traffic become? When do we need to turn around? And every enjoyable moment comes with the same warning sitting in the back of your mind. Do not miss the ship. Many long-time cruisers remember port calls that felt like full days. Now, stops of around 6 hours can leave passengers feeling as though they barely arrived before they had to begin finding their way back. Some people do not mind that. They enjoy getting a taste of several destinations without changing hotels, dragging suitcases through airports, or organizing transportation between cities. They may only want a short tour, a good lunch, and a few hours ashore before returning to the comfort of the ship. For them, cruising was never about exploring every street. It was about seeing several places easily. But other passengers feel they are collecting ports rather than experiencing them. A photograph, a rushed tour, a souvenir shop, back on board. The itinerary may look impressive on the booking page. 4 ports? 5 ports? Maybe even 6. But that number means much less when passengers only have enough time to see the area closest to the pier. And here is the uncomfortable part. A shorter port day can make the cruise line's excursion feel less like one option and more like the only safe choice. When passengers have 8 or 10 hours ashore, they may feel comfortable hiring a local guide, taking a taxi, or exploring independently. Give them only 6 hours, and the entire calculation changes. Traffic becomes scarier. Distance matters more. A delayed tour feels dangerous. And the cruise line excursion, which often costs more, can suddenly feel worth paying for because passengers expect more help if something runs late. We cannot claim every shortened port call was deliberately designed to sell excursions. Schedules can be affected by port availability, tides, distance, fuel, local restrictions, and the ship's next destination. But it would also be naive to pretend the cruise line never benefits. Passengers spend less time away from the ship. They may return on board earlier, and more of them may choose the excursion being sold by the cruise line because the tighter timetable makes independent plans feel riskier. The frustrating part is that the destination may be the main reason passengers book the cruise, not the elevator, not the buffet, not another afternoon beside the pool, the destination. And when the ship begins preparing to leave before passengers feel they have properly arrived, the port becomes something they looked at rather than somewhere they experienced. Number 7. The real destination being replaced by the cruise line's version. More cruise itineraries are visiting destinations created, owned, or heavily controlled by the cruise lines themselves. Private islands, private beach clubs, private resorts. Places designed to make the day clean, easy, controlled, and almost impossible to get lost in. Some passengers actively choose cruises because of these stops. The beaches can be beautiful. The ship is nearby. Food may be included. The cruise card often works. There is no need to exchange money, negotiate with a taxi driver, or spend the afternoon worrying about how to get back. Families can relax. First-time cruisers may feel safer. And anyone who simply wants a pool lounger, a frozen drink, and a stress-free beach day may have an excellent time. For those passengers, the cruise line's version of the destination may be exactly what they wanted. But something else can disappear when the cruise line controls nearly everything around you. The surprises, the local restaurants, the streets that were not designed around arriving cruise passengers, the shop whose owner has no connection to the company operating the ship, the feeling that you have entered another country instead of stepping into an extension of the cruise. One private destination can be a welcome break, but some itineraries now include 2 of them. There are even sailings where most of the stops are islands, resorts, or beach experiences connected to cruise companies. At that point, you have not completely left the cruise line's world. The scenery changed, the company did not, and cruise lines have obvious reasons for loving these destinations. They control the experience, they control many of the activities, and they can keep far more passenger spending inside their own operation through cabanas, water parks, beach clubs, drinks, equipment rentals, and upgraded private areas. Instead of thousands of passengers taking their money into a local town, much of that money remains within the cruise line's system. That does not make private destinations bad. Some are among the most popular stops in cruising. For passengers who want an easy, predictable beach day, they may be far more enjoyable than a crowded commercial port filled with aggressive vendors and expensive taxis. But cruisers who travel for local food, culture, history, and genuine discovery may feel that something important has been removed from the itinerary. A cruise once felt like an easy way to visit several different places. Now, some sailings can feel like an easy way to visit several different versions of the same cruise company. The day may be beautiful. It may be comfortable. It may even become your favorite stop. But when every rough edge, local surprise, and unfamiliar experience has been polished away, it may feel more like a cruise line attraction than somewhere you genuinely traveled. Coming up, the next few changes go far beyond crowded ships and shorter port days. They affect the real price of the vacation, the arguments passengers are now having, and whether cruising still gives people what they thought they paid for. And stay for number 11, because we're getting to the point where people who have cruised for decades are finally deciding they may not book another one. Number 8, the short cruise. That changes the whole atmosphere. A short cruise can sound perfect. 3 or 4 nights away. Less time off work. A lower starting price. No need to spend an entire week discovering whether you enjoy cruising or whether the person sharing your cabin snores like a lawnmower with engine trouble. For first-time cruisers, families, birthday groups, or anyone needing a quick escape, these sailings can be brilliant. You board, you unpack once. You eat, drink, watch a show, visit a port, and return home without using half your annual leave. Some passengers love the faster pace. The ship feels energetic. People are celebrating. The bars stay lively. They did not board for a week of reading silently beside a window while discussing the quality of the herbal tea. They came to have fun. But squeezing an entire cruise into 3 or 4 nights creates a very different atmosphere. Part of the first day is spent boarding. The final morning is spent leaving. That leaves very little time in between. You have barely worked out which direction the buffet is when the luggage tags appear and someone starts discussing disembarkation. So passengers try to fit everything into the middle: the pool, the shows, the casino, the bars, the specialty restaurant, the port, and the late-night food they absolutely did not need, but ate anyway because the cruise was nearly over. That urgency can make certain short sailings feel louder, busier, and more focused on drinking and nightlife than longer cruises. One passenger may call it a fantastic weekend party. The person in the next cabin may call it 3 nights of discovering exactly how thin the walls are. Neither is necessarily wrong. They simply booked the same cruise expecting 2 completely different vacations. Longer sailings usually give passengers time to settle in. They learn the ship. They find their favorite breakfast spot. They stop racing around trying to experience everything before it disappears. On a short cruise, that slower moment may never arrive. But for some passengers, that is exactly the attraction. They do not want a calm week at sea. They want a quick burst of entertainment without the time, cost, or commitment of a longer sailing. The problem is not that short cruises are worse. It is that they offer a very different experience from the unhurried vacations some cruisers still expect. Because when you unpack your suitcase and almost immediately need to think about packing it again, the cruise may be great fun. It just may not feel very relaxing. Number 9. The base fare. That no longer tells you what the vacation costs. The price that gets passengers excited about a cruise is often nowhere near the amount they eventually spend. You see the advertisement, 7 nights at sea, meals and entertainment included. A price low enough to make you start looking at flights before you have even checked what the cabin looks like. Then you begin building the actual vacation. Wi-Fi, drinks, excursions, specialty dining, transfers, and suddenly, the cheap cruise is standing beside a much larger total wearing an innocent expression. None of these extras is automatically hidden. Cruise lines usually explain what is included, and passengers can refuse many of the add-ons. But the advertised fare may only represent the cheapest way onto the ship, not the version of the vacation many passengers imagined when they booked. Some cruisers prefer this system. They do not drink enough for a package. They are happy with the included restaurants. They want to disconnect rather than pay for Wi-Fi. They explore ports independently and would resent being charged a higher fare for benefits they would never use. For them, a lower base price and optional extras provide real choice. But other passengers hate having to rebuild the cruise one purchase at a time. They do not want to compare bundles, study exclusions, calculate daily costs, and work out whether the package that sounds convenient is actually worth buying. A charge of $60 per person per day may not sound enormous when it is advertised. For 2 passengers over 7 nights, it becomes $840. And that is before adding anything the package leaves out. This is why some cruisers now use spreadsheets before booking. Not because calculating expenses is their idea of a good time, because the starting price can make 2 completely different vacations look as though they cost the same. One passenger books the basic fare, eats the included food, skips the internet, pays for drinks individually, and has a wonderful cruise. Another wants packages, tours, photographs, upgraded meals, and more convenience. They may also have a wonderful cruise, but at a price far above the figure that first caught their attention. Neither passenger made the wrong choice. The problem begins when someone believes they booked the second experience while only being shown the price of the first. Cruise lines argue that passengers should not be forced to pay for benefits they do not use. Many cruisers agree. Others would rather see one higher, honest total upfront than watch the cost climb every time they add back another part of the vacation. And that is the real divide. Some passengers want the cheapest doorway onto the ship. Others want to know what the entire vacation will cost before they walk through it. Number 10. The gratuity charge that turned cruisers against each other. Few cruise charges create an argument faster than automatic gratuities. On many mainstream cruise lines, unless the amount was prepaid or already included in the fare, a daily service charge is added for each eligible passenger. Over a longer cruise, especially for a couple or family, the total can become hundreds of dollars. For some cruisers, there is no argument. They leave the charge exactly where it is. Their cabin attendant cleaned the room. The dining team served meal after meal, and countless crew members worked behind the scenes to keep the ship running. Those passengers see the charge as part of the real cost of cruising. Some even give extra cash to the people who made the vacation special. But other cruisers see the exact same charge and become furious. They say a gratuity should reward exceptional service, not arrive automatically like another fee. They believe cruise lines should pay their employees properly, build that cost into the advertised fare, and stop asking passengers to settle the bill afterward. Some remove the automatic charge and tip cash directly to the crew members who personally help them. Others leave it in place, but still resent how unclear the system can feel. Who receives the money? How is it divided? Is it extra income for the crew, or does it form part of the compensation the cruise line already promised them? Cruise lines publish explanations about how the money supports crew compensation, but many passengers still feel they cannot clearly see where their individual payment goes. That lack of transparency keeps the argument alive. Then somebody says the sentence guaranteed to make the room explode. If you can afford to cruise, you can afford to tip. To one passenger, that sounds completely reasonable. To another, it sounds like the cruise line has handed its wage responsibility to the customer and added a guilt trip for anyone who questions it. That is how a charge meant to reward service began turning cruisers against one another. The passenger who removes it is called cheap. The passenger who pays it is told they are helping a profitable company avoid paying proper wages. Meanwhile, the crew member standing in the middle of the argument still has another long shift ahead. Many passengers would happily pay the same amount if it appeared honestly in the fare from the beginning. They are not arguing that crew members should receive less. They are arguing that the cruise line should show the true price up front instead of advertising a lower fare and adding a large daily charge later. Others want it kept separate so they can adjust it if the service has genuinely been poor. Both sides believe they are defending what is fair. But the deeper problem is that passengers do not trust the system enough to agree on what fair even looks like. And when a thank you becomes one of the most bitter arguments in cruising, the charge is no longer only about tipping. It is about whether passengers still trust the company collecting the money. Number 11. When longtime cruisers decide it is no longer worth it. The biggest warning for cruise lines is not a first-time passenger who decides cruising is not for them. It is the passenger who has loved cruising for 20 or 30 years and one day closes the booking page. This is the person who remembers when stepping on board felt special before they had purchased a package, downloaded an app, or reserved half the vacation in advance. They know cruising has always changed. Ships became larger. Technology replaced paper. New restaurants and attractions appeared. They adapted because the experience was still worth it. But for some long-time cruisers, the changes have stopped feeling like progress. They now feel like a slow removal of the things that made cruising relaxing in the first place. It is rarely one disastrous sailing that drives them away. It is the accumulation. The meal that disappointed them, the port stop that felt rushed, the final account that looked nothing like the price that persuaded them to book. None of those moments alone is enough to destroy a vacation. But after years of paying more and working harder to enjoy the experience, some passengers begin asking a question they never expected to ask. Why am I still doing this? Plenty of loyal cruisers still believe cruising offers fantastic value. They know how to avoid the crowds. They choose the ships and cruise lines that suit them. They book longer sailings, smaller ships, more inclusive packages, or cabins that provide the experience they want. They still love unpacking once, waking up somewhere new, and watching the ocean from the balcony. For them, cruising has changed, but it has not lost its magic. Other longtime cruisers are making a different choice. They are trying river cruises, all-inclusive resorts, land vacations where they can stay longer in one place. Some only book when the discount is deep enough to make the compromises worthwhile. And some are simply finished. Not because they suddenly hate the ocean, not because every cruise line is terrible, and not because cruising can no longer be enjoyable. They are leaving because the relationship has changed. They no longer feel the cruise line is trying to provide the best vacation for the fare. They feel it is calculating how much more they will pay before finally saying no. That is the breaking point. Cruisers can forgive a disappointing meal. They can survive a crowded elevator. They can refuse an upgrade and walk past a sales table. What is much harder to repair is lost trust. Because once a loyal passenger begins believing every new change will mean less included, another charge, or more work just to enjoy the vacation, the next cruise stops feeling exciting. It starts feeling like a negotiation. And when people who have cruised for decades finally decide they may not book another one, cruise lines should pay attention. Those passengers did not fall out of love with cruising overnight. Cruising gave them one small reason after another to reconsider it. We'd love to know what you think. Which change bothers you most? Or do you still enjoy cruising just as much as ever? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you made it to the end, we'd really appreciate a like and subscribe.